This is the asynchronous video for Business Math B Unit 2. So hopefully you've already viewed the Lesson 12 video, which consisted of Activity 1A, crafting a question, and then the short video for Activity 1B, solving the question that you created in Activity 1A. Now we'll move on to Lesson 13, using substitution to solve for unknown variables. Let's get started. A microscope has a 60% markup rate based on cost. Nye Science Center sells a microscope for $123.05. What is the cost to the nearest cent? Okay, let's read that one more time. A microscope has a 60% markup rate based on cost. Nye Science Center sells a microscope for $123.05. What is the cost to the nearest cent? So our goal is to find cost. We know that the markup rate is 60%. We know that the selling price for the microscope is $123.05. So our question is, what is the cost? How much did it cost Nye Science Center to get this microscope before they turned around and sold it to you for $123.05? We're going to use the same or similar equations rather that we did in Lesson 12. Markup rate is equal to markup over cost, or markup divided by cost. We can also compute markup by taking the difference of the selling price and the cost. And let's just pick those apart really briefly. So if I take the markup, the dollar amount markup, so let's say, for example, that I buy something costs me $50 and I sell it to you for $75. That means I've marked it up $25, right? So I'm profiting $25 off this sale. If it costs me $50 and I sell it for $75, the markup is $25. That's the profit I'm earning off of this. If I want to know what that percentage is, right? What percent am I earning? That's called the markup rate. And I can find it by taking the markup, how much money I'm making, divided by the cost. And that's the cost to me, okay? That's going to tell me the markup rate. By how much, by how many percentages did I mark up this item before selling it? I can also compute markup just like I did there, where I said, okay, well, if I sold it to you for $75, but it only cost me $50, then my markup must be $25. That's what this equation is describing. Okay, so two different equations. Notice that the variables are different. So one has markup rate, markup, and cost. One has markup, cost, and selling price. So depending on whether you know selling price or whether you know markup rate, you might use a different equation depending on the situation. So our goal is to solve for cost. Start by just seeing if you can complete one of the equations. So for example, if I look at this markup equation, I say markup equals selling price minus cost. Well, I know the markup rate, but I don't know the actual dollar amount of the markup, so I have to leave that as a variable. I do know the selling price, right? They told me specifically that the selling price for the item was $123.05. They say that right here, right? Let's pick a different color. Let's do red. $123.05, okay? And then there's cost. Well, cost is what I'm trying to solve for, so obviously I can't fill in cost. Well, that didn't get me very far, right? I now have an equation that still has two variables in it. I can't solve it. However, what I can do is use substitution into my second equation, this equation up here, and let me show you what I mean. So if I filled in what I knew for this equation, I know markup rate is 60%, in other words 0.60. I don't know markup, right? I don't know that dollar amount, and I don't know cost, again, because that's what I'm trying to solve for. So I have this equation 0.60 equals markup divided by cost, and then I have this equation, markup equals $123.05 minus cost. So I have two equations. I'm just going to rewrite the second one. Markup equals 123.05 minus cost. So notice that I have two equations with the same two unknowns, right? Markup and cost, markup and cost. Since I am trying to solve for cost, here's what I do. I am going to eliminate markup from these equations by using substitution for cost. So notice that in this equation I have markup equals $123.05 minus cost. Okay? That means it's equivalent either way, right? Just like saying I could write the number 4 or I could write 2 plus 2, and it means the same thing. So anywhere I saw a 4, if I wanted to, I could replace it with the phrase 2 plus 2, and I wouldn't change the quantity, I wouldn't change the value of the equation, right? We're doing the same thing here. So we're saying markup is equal to 123.05 minus cost. So anywhere I see the word markup, I can replace it with this phrase, and it'll mean the same thing. So what I've done is I've taken this equation, and I've plugged it in right here. Okay? I've taken the right-hand side of my equation, and I've plugged it in for markup. So one more time. 123.05 minus cost, and I've plugged it in right here. That gives me 0.60 equals 123.05 minus cost over cost. So what was the point of that? Well, 1, I now have a one variable equation, right? And 2, it's the variable that I want to solve for. So notice that I didn't get rid of cost, I eliminated markup. I solved for markup in terms of cost, and I substituted that into my second equation, right? So by doing that, I eliminated markup, a variable that I don't really care the value of, and now I've got this one variable equation where I just need to solve for cost. From here, and that's the difficult step, just doing that substitution. From here, it'll probably be a little bit more straightforward. You just need to solve. So notice I've got 0.60 equals the quantity of 123.05 minus cost over cost. So to simplify, I'm going to multiply both sides of my equation by cost. On the right-hand side, if I'm multiplying and dividing by cost, that cancels out. I end up with 0.60 times cost equals 123.05 minus cost. Now I take my my cost, and I move it to the other side of the equation. So this minus cost over here, I've added it to both sides of the equation. It cancels out on the right-hand side, and now instead of 0.60 cost, I have 1.6 cost. Now if this step is confusing, think about normal algebra where instead of using words we would just use x, right? If I said what's x plus x, you would tell me it was 2x, right? If I said what's 2x plus 3x, you'd tell me it's 5x. If I said what's x plus, 0.5x, you would tell me 1.5x, and here's why, is because this x has an invisible 1 coefficient in front of it, right? So 1x plus 0.5x, you add up the value of the coefficients, and you get 1.5x. That's what's happening here. This left-hand side had 0.6x, right, or 0.6 cost, and then I added another x. So it became 1.6x, or 1.6 cost. So that's why I have 1.6 cost on the left-hand side equals 123.05. I divide that coefficient 1.6 on both sides of the equation, and I get cost equals $76.91. So again, we used substitution. We took the two equations we knew that had to do with markup. Markup rate equals markup over cost, and markup equals selling price minus cost. We plugged in the information we knew. Since I was solving for cost, I took a phrase that included cost, and I used it to substitute and get rid of markup. And that gave me this equation. And from there, I just solved for cost, and we got 76.91. Let's do one more example of that. An organic apple has a 110% markup rate based on cost. The selling price is $2.99. What is the markup to the nearest cent? So first of all, notice that this time we're solving for markup rather than cost. But we can still use the same method. We can still use substitution to do this. And substitution is a skill that will come up a couple times in class, so it's definitely worth practicing and making sure that you understand it. So, let's read it one more time. An organic apple has a 110% markup rate based on cost. The selling price is $2.99. What is the markup to the nearest cent? Okay, so our goal is to solve for markup, right? And once again, we have these two equations. Markup rate equals markup over cost, and markup equals selling price minus cost. Once again, let's just plug in the information that we know and see that we get what we get left with. So for this equation, we plug in our $2.99 selling price. I'm not going to use a highlighter, I'm just going to use a pen here. So we know that selling price is $2.99, right? So we took selling price and we plugged in $2.99. So markup equals $2.99 minus cost, okay? Now let's also do that for our first equation, okay? Where we have, there we go, markup rate. Well, we know the markup rate is 110% or 1.10. So that's my markup rate equals markup divided by cost. Okay, so again, I'm just simplifying that equation. Once again, I'm left with two variables, right? And again, my goal is to solve for markup. So now I have these two equations. Here's 1 and here's 2. Each one has markup and cost as a variable. I have markup equals $2.99 minus cost, and I have 1.1 equals markup divided by cost. Since my goal is to find markup, I'm going to use substitution to eliminate cost because I don't care what the cost is. I care about the markup. In order to eliminate markup, eliminate cost, I'm going to solve for cost in terms of markup. So notice that as it's written, I had markup equals $2.99 minus cost. If I used this phrase for substitution, it would eliminate markup. If I substituted this in for markup, it would eliminate that variable. I don't want to do that because that's the variable I'm trying to solve for. So instead, I've rearranged it. Okay, notice that I've just used this same equation. I've rearranged it to solve for cost in terms of markup. So now I have cost equals $2.99 minus markup. So I've solved for cost in terms of the variable that I want to solve. Okay, so notice I'm keeping that one in play. This is my goal. This means anywhere I see cost, I can substitute in the phrase $2.99 minus markup. So I'm going to go to, this was all from equation 1, right? So I'm going to go to equation 2, I see the word cost, and I'm just going to plop this phrase in and I'm going to substitute it for cost. It becomes 1.10 equals markup divided by $2.99 minus markup, okay? 1.10 equals markup divided by, and that's where I substitute that in for cost, and I get $2.99 minus markup. Again, this is the critical step, so if you still didn't quite understand that, try writing it out for yourself. That helps. Try pausing and rewinding the video, or just pausing it and kind of studying the screen for a moment. This is the most critical part of the problem. From here, it's a matter of solving for markup. So to simplify, I am going to multiply both sides by $2.99 minus markup. Notice that I have to multiply the whole denominator to simplify, right? So this is what that looks like, multiplying both sides by that phrase. On the right-hand side, I'm dividing by 299 minus market, and I'm multiplying. It cancels out. Notice now that I've got this one, in fact, let me change colors here. I've got 110 times 299 minus markup. I have to distribute this 110. Okay. So I end up with 329, which is 110 times 299. 329 minus 110 times markup. Again, I had to distribute and multiply. Equals markup because the right-hand side canceled out. And I'm going to continue to simplify from here. I'm going to move 1.10 markup to the other side of the equation by addition. So I'm going to add 1.10 markup to both sides of the equation. That cancels out on the right-hand side. And I'm left with 329. I'm left with 329. Let's see if I can get my animation. Okay, not responding for some reason. That's okay. We'll take it from here by pen. I'm left with 329 equals, well, I had, in fact, let's just use m instead of writing markup. So before I had m, and then I added 1.1m. Well, what's m plus 1.1m? Remember, there's an invisible 1 coefficient in front of that. So if I had 1m and I added another 1.1m, I now have 2.1m. So I have 3.29 equals 2.1m. Now I am going to divide both sides of the equation by 2.1. And I end up with m equals, and I'll have to pull up calculator since my presentation stopped working. Okay. So I had 329. I'm dividing it by 2.1. And I get 1.57. 1.57. So M, or markup, is $1.57. Okay, now it's your turn. So for activity 2A, you are going to do step 1. This is activity 2A. An item has a percent markup rate based on cost. The selling price is price. What is the markup rate to the nearest cent? So you're going to fill in the item, you're going to fill in the percentage, you're going to fill in the price, and then you're going to write down that complete question in the provided space in the Google form for part 2A.